Hey, welcome back to Bulldogs Live with Coach Kirby Smart. And, folks, let me hear you. Let me hear you. I hear you breathing. There you go. All right.
Yeah, they've been over there at Creature Comforts hanging out.
It's our friends from Napa here tonight. Great Georgia sponsor. Our friends from Napa, our audience tonight. Glad to have you folks here. Hope you have a good time. And from what Kirby was just saying, a lot of you have already had a good time, I think, right?
They said they're going back.
Going back for more.
They'll go straight to Lexington from here.
Well, y'all behave yourself and enjoy yourself tonight. We've got an hour with the coach to we'll take some of your questions tonight. We've got some social media questions as well. We'll talk a little Georgia football tonight. Our program is presented by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is an official sponsor of the Georgia Bulldogs, and you can send questions in on the social platforms by attaching the hashtag AskCoachSmart. That's brought to you by Greenpoint Ag, farmer-owned and locally focused. And the coach is, I don't think I've ever seen that many helmets to sign in this program before. This is a bunch.
Well, they've always been here. They just brought them, kind of rationed them to me, and they decided to put them all out, so I'm going to sign them all.
You know, you're very skilled being able to do that and answer questions and keep a train of thought all at the same time.
Why is it hard to sign your name?
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. You got me on that one. All right. Tell us about your week as you get ready for Kentucky on Saturday night. How's things looking for you?
It's been good. You guys have gotten after it, taking on the mantra of going on the road in the SEC, which we have a history of some really tough games. The first game of the year on the road in the SEC historically been tough. The game in Lexington historically has been tough. So there's two toughs there, and they're kind of coming together. So our guys have bought into preparing. You know, you got a lot of kids that probably hadn't played in front of an environment like this, and we've got to go execute and block out the crowd and play to our style of play.
I know the pecking order of the schedule doesn't really matter, but you know, usually when Georgia goes to Kentucky, it's in the cooler weather months. It's in October or maybe early November. Just looking back, this is. If my research was correct, only the second time we've played them in September. The last time was 1942 when Georgia opened up. Yeah, I think we were. Georgia opened up with Kentucky, and they went on to win a national championship that year. But this is the earliest that Georgia's played Kentucky, going, you know, as long as the two teams have been in the Southeastern Conference. So at least the weather, you know, aside from some possible rain, it won't be cold and chilly and all of that. So that's one advantage, at least for the fans anyway.
Right.
You know, Kentucky is 1-1. Georgia's 2-0 coming into this, and Kirby, what have you seen out of your guys the last 2 weeks as you get ready for this SEC opener? Now, how do you like the way you're playing so far?
Well, I think it's week to week. You know, we didn't get tested a lot last week. Probably played a team that was very overmatched, although, you know, coming out of the game, I have a lot of respect for them. I think they're going to win some games in their conference and have a chance to win their conference championship. They've done a good job in the portal and gone out and gotten some good players, but that's a hard evaluation for us. They were overmatched, and we had a lot of young guys get to play, and some older players get better. I think for us, the test of going on the road is mighty tough in the SEC, and we've got to play a really solid, sound, kind of mistake-free game with these guys. Because what happens is you get on the road, and you know, momentum starts to build, and you got to kill the momentum by how you play.
You've had in the first two games, I believe it's 18 different guys catch at least one pass. That's a lot of receivers in the first two games. Does that show the depth that you have, or what does that mean? That when you have that many guys,
lead, you know, and when you have a lead, you try to spread it around. I'll bet you the last couple of years it's been that way, because I keep hearing that stat over and over that we're spreading it around, and our quarterback and our coordinator do a good job of making that possible, because most of the plays have several options on the play.
And different guys able to score touchdowns as well. I think you only have one player that scored more than one. That was Colby Young, but everybody, and you're spreading that around too. So you have a lot of weapons on offense.
Well, yeah, we certainly we need to have weapons. I don't know if touchdowns means weapons. It depends on who you're playing, right? So some of that's in regard relative to who you play, but I'm certainly proud of those guys, how they played.
Georgia and Kentucky Saturday night. It's a night game. 7:39 is the official kick time. We're on the air with you at 3:30 Saturday afternoon for our coverage of Bulldogs football on the Bulldogs Sports Network. We hope you can join us for that. When we come back, we will get to your questions on social, and we'll take some questions from our audience. Our friends from Napa are here tonight as our guest audience. Thank you, folks, again for being here this evening. And we will continue with Coach Kirby Smart, Bulldogs Live, right after this on the Bulldogs Sports Network. We are streaming the show on Facebook tonight if you are so inclined. Our studio producer is Ashley Gentry, and our producer and engineer here in Athens tonight is Adam Gillespie. And we've got our friends from Napa as our audience here tonight, and we'll take some questions from them tonight. Let's grab one from hashtag Ask Coach Smart as we get started. It's brought to you by Greenpoint Ag, farmer-owned and locally focused. And Jake and Bogart leads us off tonight. Coach, was there any particular area you saw improvement from week 1 to week 2?
Offense started much faster. That's probably the biggest notice that I had. It's tough when you play an opponent like that because, we were able to overmatch them on the line of scrimmage, and, we scored a touchdown the first play, and it took us more time to do that in the Clemson game. But it's hard to measure that. It's really hard to say what we did better. I think we had a lot more players play, and we got better during the week of practice for sure.
How much time do you spend with the film breakdown from the previous game? How much time do you allot yourself to look at that?
Probably 2 hours per side of ball. So I would watch the defense for about 2 hours, and then I'll watch the offense for about 2 hours and write down my questions for the coordinators and look at things and try to project what another team might see and try to exploit. Okay, they're going to see this and they're going to try this next, and let's try to stay one step ahead. That's a big part of what I do on Sundays is watching that, and then the special teams.
This is Brent, a question from our audience, our friends from Napa. Brent, hi, welcome to the show. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Thanks, Coach. My question is, what person in or out of football influenced you to become the leader you are today, and what is their best skill?
Man, what person affected me or influenced me the most in or out of football? I mean, I can't answer that question without saying my parents, right? Because I spent so much time with them. They raised me in a Christian home. Both great parents were always present for me, my brother, and sister. So, my mom and dad had the greatest influence on me. And Dad was a coach, but he was also a good dad. And he never really crossed those two together, so he always kept them separated. But as far as leadership style, probably learned mostly from him, just watching him grow up. And I was always the little runt in the locker room that went through every team. They were my Georgia Bulldogs. They were my favorite team, watching the Bainbridge High School teams from the time I was 8 till I was 16. That's all I knew for 8 years. So I probably learned the most from him.
Great, thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate your question. Yes, indeed. Andrew in Johns Creek, Georgia, on hashtag Ask Coach Smart. How much do you stay in contact with Coach Mark Stoops at Kentucky?
I really like Mark Stoops. I didn't know him well until I became a head coach at Georgia, and we started going to the head coach meetings, and I think he and I are the most tenured guys now, maybe. So we have spent a lot of years in meetings together. And I just have an appreciation for him. I always followed him when he was the defensive coordinator, I think, at Florida State way back when, and we recruited against each other. But I like him a lot. We text a lot. Not much this week, but we text a lot throughout the year, and we bounce ideas off each other and say, hey, how are you dealing with this? How are you doing this? And he'll call every now and then. He has a place at the beach, so we would run into him down at 30A. He has a place down in Rosemary, and so I would see him every summer, but I like Mark a lot.
Does he play golf?
I don't know that. I do know he plays, but I don't play with him. I don't play with him much, but he does play.
Andrew, thanks for your question. Let's see. Michael in Roswell, Georgia. How physical has this week been at practice?
It's been really physical. I think from the start of Monday, we didn't have anybody play over 30-something snaps. And so when you don't have players play over 30 snaps, you're able to recover faster. So we did a little more Monday than we would typically do. We had a good Tuesday, good Wednesday, and then starting to scale back and get recovery for the game.
And speaking of recovery, something new in the SEC, it's mandated by the league, is that availability list middle of the week and leading up to the game. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Nope. I mean, it's required.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like.
I mean, good or bad, or indifferent.
It's like you guys need something to talk about. Everybody needs something to talk about, so they talk about it. But I had that list already. Like that list was already every week we had that list. So it's just gone public now.
Kevin in Atlanta, how does the chance of rain affect the way we practice?
Well, the chance of rain requires us to do more wet ball drills, and we've had water out there all week spraying things down. I think there's a lot of people making fun of Florida State with water guns and things spraying, but we've done the same thing. We've dumped buckets of water, sprayed water. I mean, you're trying to simulate a water game, so you do it to the quarterbacks, receivers, punt returners, snappers, holders. You want to make it harder than it will be in the game so that they have confidence when they go out there to do it. So we've had a lot of that this week.
This is Bulldogs Live with Coach Kirby Smart. We thank you for your questions on hashtag Ask Coach Smart. They're brought to you by Greenpoint Ag, farmer-owned and locally focused. Our show tonight presented by Wells Fargo, an official sponsor of the Georgia Bulldogs. And our friends from Napa are here as our audience, and we'll get more questions for the coach as the Dogs get ready for Kentucky on Saturday night in Lexington. We'll continue with Bulldogs Live and Coach Kirby Smart right after this on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network. Presented by Wells Fargo tonight. Wells Fargo, an official sponsor of the Georgia Bulldogs, and we are taking questions from the social platforms and from our audience. Our friends from Napa are here in town and having a good time. And there they are.
Napa.
There they are.
Just trying to represent every time.
Great Bulldogs sponsor. And Luke has our next question. Luke, welcome to the show, and fire away when you're ready.
Thank you. Coach, what do you look for week to week to give you an edge as you scout your next opponent?
Weaknesses, where we can capitalize on things. We try to not make it about the opponent and make it more about us and our strengths. I think when you talk to people, we try to put a lot of pressure on three phases: offense, defense, and then special teams, and we don't want to let up. If you've got a weakness, then we're going to try to exploit it and just try to be really sound in all three. And the hardest thing to do to me in college football is be consistent, and that's what we hang our hat on. Is like, we're going to out-consistent you. We're going to give you a solid performance week in and week out, and try to be really consistent with what we do, regardless of who the opponent is.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
Luke, thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight. Hashtag Ask Coach Smart is brought to you by Greenpoint Ag, farmer-owned and locally focused. Our next question comes from that list. Let's see. Mark in Aiken, South Carolina. Is there one player that has stood out at practice this week, maybe on offense and on defense? One of each, if you can.
That's a hard one
there.
For one week, that's such a short window. Besides, I would be, letting Kentucky know what was going on. So I don't know that I can divulge that information. I would say Thorson and Peyton Woodring.
There you go.
They've been exceptional.
Good answer. Good answer. Do you have guys that are better practice players than maybe they've shown in games, or vice versa? Does that pop up much?
Rarely. I mean, you if you have good practices, you play well, and if you don't have good practices, you don't play well.
You don't play much.
So
right?
it's the good players play good in practice. It's very rare that you just say, "Oh man, that guy had a great game. He practiced like crap all week, but he had a great game." That just doesn't happen.
Well, Mark and Aiken, there you go. Peyton Woodring and Brett Thorson standing out at practice.
Stick to it.
This week, so that's good stuff. Let's see, Todd in Athens, what was it like to be back inside Sanford Stadium for the opener last week?
It was awesome. Fans turned out, great weather. I thought it was a great atmosphere. I know it meant a lot to our players to come out to a packed house, regardless of who the opponent is, and got to tailgate and got to enjoy the morning and the afternoon, because we got enough time on both ends to really enjoy it.
That kind of flip-flops this week with a night game. What does that do to your schedule when you play at night and on the road, so you have to travel back, you get back late and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's tough. TV's changed things in terms of recovery and getting back super late, because those games are really hard to recover from. Luckily, we have a off week, but we'll have some games like that we don't have an off week, and you've got to return from, so it makes it really hard.
Pat in Watkinsville, Georgia, are there any particular memories that stick out while playing at Kentucky during your playing days?
I didn't remember this, but I did a radio spot with Jeff Dantzler not too long ago, and he brought up my game, my junior or senior year, and I didn't realize that we were winning. We fumbled. They got the ball. They were driving down to score, and they had a field goal to win the game, and they bobbled the snap. And I remember that game now that he says that they were kicking a field goal to win the game, and they dropped the snap, fumbled the snap, and then we ended up pouncing on it, and the game, we won the game that way. That was a wild one.
Pat, thanks for your question. There you go. You got a little glory days from Coach Kirby Smart there on playing at Kentucky a little while back. Tommy in Marietta, Georgia, how does familiarity with Brock Vandegrift impact your preparation this week?
It really hasn't. I mean, we do know Brock. Brock knows us. There's going to be things that he's gone against for years against our defense. He's going to be able to spot that, notice that, know that tendency, see that defense, and know it, just like, we may know more about him. But I think those two cancel each other out.
What were some of the traits that you liked about him when he was here? And he, as you pointed out earlier this week, he graduated from Georgia and moved on to play another year somewhere else. But what were some of his traits that you enjoyed seeing him while he was here?
He's a competitor. He loves his teammates. He'll sacrifice anything for the team. He's a really good athlete. He's got great arm talent. He's a joy to be around, and he's a great young Christian man. I mean, he is as good of a kid as I have been around in my career in terms of doing right on the field and off the field, and just so respectful.
Georgia and Kentucky Saturday night, 7:30. Official kick time is 7:39. We hope you can join us on the radio for our coverage of Bulldogs football. We'll start at 3:30 Saturday afternoon with our pregame coverage. And stay with us. We've got more questions for the coach from our audience and from our social platforms as well. When we come back, Bulldogs Live with Coach Kirby Smart. More in a moment on the Bulldogs Sports Network. We are here in Athens with Coach Kirby Smart, Bulldogs Live, taking your questions for the coach as the Dogs get ready for Kentucky this week. That's a 7:39 official kick time on Saturday night in Lexington. Our friends from Napa here are here as our audience tonight, and we've got a question from Carl. Hey, Carl, welcome to the show. I heard your name mentioned earlier. I don't know if that's good or bad.
You never know. You never know.
We're about to find out. Go ahead with your question.
Coach,
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know if you remember me from last year.
I don't.
Oh,
Is it Carl with a K or a C?
Kay, wasn't a very good first impression. Anyway, I'm the one that stood up here and said, your halftime speeches get me so pumped up it makes me want to run through a brick wall. And can you pull some string, get me down to the locker room to hear one of those live and in person? And you told me there wasn't string long enough. You remember that?
I don't. It depends on how deep your pockets are if you want to get down there.
Coach, this year I bought the string for you.
Dude. That's a long string. He's got money on the end of it.
What do you say?
No. Nothing's for free.
I will keep chopping wood, and I will be back again next year to ask you.
Bring it back, Carl.
Thank you, Coach.
Bring it back, Carl.
All right, Carl. He may have to tie some cash on the end of that next year to get down in there. All right, there's your hint for next year, Carl. Thanks for being here.
I'll remember you next year, though. I promise.
Your brother's Carl with a K.
That's right. He is. That's why I asked you.
Hey, let's look ahead right now. It's brought to you by the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. The penalty for getting a DUI can cost up to $10,000. That's why the Governor's Office of Highway Safety says, drive sober so you won't get pulled over. All right, Coach, let's look ahead to the weekend. Just some general thoughts of what you're expecting in this Georgia-Kentucky game Saturday night.
Hitting. Lots of hitting. When we play there, it's lots of hitting. And they are content shrinking the game. So you get less possessions. They like to run the ball. Clock's running. They get in a lot of third and short yards, third and manageable. They don't like getting backed up. So they do a tremendous job of being really physical, and that's on both lines of scrimmage. So you got to win the kicking game on them because it's so hard to win both sides of the ball because of the way they play the game.
How successful have they been running the football in their first two games so far?
Done a really good job. First game, you use the quarterback's legs. A lot of their runs are quarterback-based. So when you use a quarterback as a runner, you get an extra hat in the run game, and that's hard to stop. I mean, it's really hard to stop when you have an extra hat in the run game than everybody else.
Both their quarterbacks mobile to a certain degree.
Both very mobile, both very tough, and both understand. Both of them ran those offenses in high school.
Question from hashtag Ask Coach Smart. Chip in Bishop, Georgia wants to know if you pay attention to the NFL Bulldogs from week to week.
I try to. I don't get to see much of it. I catch the, Twitter highlights or whatever people send me. I'll catch a clip of a touchdown or a tackle, and makes you really proud and happy to see those guys having success.
I think I saw a number this week that said Georgia has more players on the opening day rosters in the NFL than any other school this year.
I don't know about that. Right. I hadn't seen that. If it is, we need to make a graphic because we've always been close. The last couple of years we've been 2-1-2, something like that. But I honestly don't have a clue.
There's a lot of Bulldogs playing in the NFL. Certainly know that. And in Philadelphia and Green Bay when they played in Brazil last week, I think that could have formed a whole team on at least one side of the ball between the two teams. There are a lot from the Eagles and the Packers. Kelvin in Washington, Georgia, has the team. We got a weather question. Has the team welcomed the slightly cooler temperatures at practice?
Absolutely.
Can you tell the difference?
Oh yeah, there's more energy. I mean, practices seem better the cooler it is. The players get energized, pads start popping. There's like a threshold for when it gets too cold and they really don't want to hit anybody, and it's too hot and they get tired quickly. We're right in the middle of that right now. We get the cool weather. They like to practice in it. It makes football fun. You think of football being in fall weather. That's what we felt here recently.
How much are you guys in the indoor facility here? Do you use that a whole lot?
Well, we try not to. I mean, the turf wears on their legs a little more. They get a little more tired. We're going to play on turf, so we've gone inside some this week, but we're trying to get out in the elements and play with the rain, thinking we may get rain. So we've done both.
Georgia and Kentucky Saturday night SEC opener for the Bulldogs. Georgia 2-0, and Kentucky comes into this game with a record of 1-1. We'll have the broadcast for you starting at 3:30 for our pregame show, and then take you right up to kickoff at 7:39 is the official kickoff time Saturday night. This is Bulldogs Live with Coach Kirby Smart. We'll come back for more with the coach right after this on the Bulldogs Sports Network. As our audience, and we've got a question from our audience. This is Hannah. Hi, Hannah. Welcome to the show, and go ahead with your question for Coach.
All right, Coach, I got the question everybody wants to know.
Oh, boy.
What is your favorite Taylor Swift song?
Oh, man. My wife loves some Taylor Swift, and she plays those songs. Oh, man. I can't think of the dang name of it.
You can sing us a little bit. And we'll help you with
that's the problem. I definitely don't want to do that. The one about the cheerleader.
Love Story?
Yeah, that would have to be it. It's the only one I really know.
That's good.
It got played
choice.
so much around when it was popular. It was popular like 15 years ago.
It was an early one. It's one of her classics.
Yeah. So my wife goes to her concert. She's been to like 3 of her concerts, and she plays it around the house nonstop because she knows. She wants to know every word at every concert and like what set she's going to play. And her and my daughter, I've heard so much. I don't know the songs. I know the songs, but I don't know the names of the songs. It's one of those deals. But I do know Love Story.
You are a Swiftie.
I wouldn't claim that, but my wife would. My wife definitely is. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes.
Thank you, Hannah. Appreciate you being here tonight. For our friends from Napa here is our audience, and we've got questions from hashtag Ask Coach Smart as well, brought to you by Greenpoint Ag. Thomas in Royston, Georgia. He wants to know if Kentucky has real grass or artificial turf. I think you addressed that a second ago in the last segment.
Yeah, I think they changed that. I don't know when they changed it, but it was not. It used to be grass. I had a good friend in college that he was from Jacksonville, Florida, and we didn't think that he was the sharpest guy, and we landed one time in Kentucky, and he looked over and said, I thought they had bluegrass up here, but it was real grass, and I think he really believed it at the time that it was bluegrass, but when we landed the plane, he saw all that green grass everywhere and was blown away.
You should send him out to Boise.
No doubt. They got bluegrass.
That's right. They have the blue turf. Steve in Dalton, Georgia, how much do you pay attention to high school football scores in season?
I watch it really close. I'm interested in the programs that we recruit, and they come see us all summer, and you watch them do 7-on-7 tournaments, and there's a lot of friendly banter among the schools that you attended. And most of the Georgia high schools, we have somebody representing that school on our team, and they go back and forth. So I like to keep up with it and see who's headed to the playoffs and things.
Do you always check your high school?
I don't always check my high school. I hear about it usually, but I don't get to check it. I just look at the scores that come up.
How has, as far as getting to do visits at games with the coaching staff and recruiting and all of that, what does that look like now? Have the rules changed, or are they relaxed a little bit so you're allowed more access to send coaches to high school football games now?
Well, you get 33 opportunities to go out and see high school games, and that's 33 over the course of the season. So if we have 10 going an off week, 10 going another off week, that's 20. That only leaves 13 opportunities for us to go. So we burn maybe 1 a week, 2 a week, and we try to go see big-time matchups and things. But you get to go. You still get to go.
How many times do you get to?
Not many. I try to stay with our team and focus on our team, and I like going out, but I don't like not being with our team.
Danny in Carrollton, Georgia, wants to know if there's anything about this Kentucky team that really jumps out to you when you look at their video.
Wideouts, and they've got some really good wideouts. They've got a really good group of front defensive guys, probably the hardest guy to block, possibly in the SEC in terms of just one-on-one. He's got great size, Deion Walker, and he's really, really hard to block.
And a former Bulldog there is one of their linebackers, Jamon Dumas-Johnson.
Yeah.
So another guy that you're familiar with his body of work.
Yes, Pop did a great job for us. Was All-American and part of national championship teams. And he was a great kid. He's a joy to be around and worked really hard. And been trying to watch him, although I hadn't got to see him much. I got to see that side of the ball a little bit and have seen him play some.
Danny, we appreciate you sending in a question. You can do so anytime during the week on social media. Hashtag AskCoachSmart is how you get them to us. They're brought to you by Greenpoint Ag, farmer-owned and locally focused. We've got one more segment with Coach Smart, and we'll do that right after this timeout on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
And actually, who asked that question? My wife texted me. My wife said delicate and getaway car.
What song?
This is not.
Delicate?
This is love story.
Getaway?
I don't know any of them.
Yes, sir. Katrina. Thank you. Okay.
Just wrap you up for tonight? You done?
Wrap me up. Get home and see if we got a game on tonight.
Buffalo.
Buffalo's playing.
Miami.
That's a short week for them.
What time do you guys leave?
Come in early. Watch all the tape from today. Then we have a meeting at 11:30. We meet till like 2. And I think we take off out of Athens at 3. We'll fly direct lower level charter planes from here to Lexington. So we've had weather knock us out. That really gets us because we got to change. We got to drive to Atlanta. Get on there. Not visibility here. We can't get out.
I was curious on that.
They've been trying to upgrade our airport so we can get bigger planes in out here. We have to fly on 2 planes instead of 1. Oh wow! They can't fly the big one in out here.
So it's like we're in Chattanooga, so our airport, they certain planes. because of the run-
What's our out time? 57.
Welcome.
You're listening to Bulldogs Live. Once again, here's your host, the voice of the Bulldogs, Scott Howard.
Welcome back. Taking your questions for Coach Kirby Smart here on Bulldogs Live. And Dog fans, a reminder, the 2024 Georgia Football Yearbook presented by Georgia Power is now available. It contains rosters, features, and lots more. And you can find that by visiting georgiadogs.com/digital today. All right, we've got another question from our friends from Napa as our audience tonight. This is Katrina. Hi, Katrina. Welcome to the show.
Guys.
Go ahead with your question.
Hey, Coach. Which current or former Georgia player that you've coached would be the most promising NCAA head coach, and why?
Man, current or former player for me would be the best future head coach. Man, I'm trying to think who else like getting into coaching. It's interesting. Warren Erickson is a young coach that's here coaching with us. He played offensive line, and he's doing a tremendous job. We hire a lot of former players, so it's hard to pick one. Jarvis has done a great job for us. I didn't coach Jarvis, but he played here. Jarvis Jones, Prather Hudson has been an outstanding one too. So we've had a lot of guys come through our program that are now coaching that I think could be great future head coaches. They would do a tremendous job.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Appreciate you being here. And speaking of coaches, you added, 4 new guys to your staff this year? We haven't really talked about that much. Can you fill us in on who those guys are and how they're doing at their positions on the staff?
Yeah, Coley, he's been with us before. He's been experienced, and I've known Coley a long time since our days at LSU together. Josh Crawford came over from Georgia Tech. He's our running backs coach, does a great job. And then Dante and T-Rob kind of work together in the secondary, and they both are very comfortable with our schemes and do a great job recruiting and do a great job working together with the secondary, which is really important.
You'll have a lot of meetings. You go over a lot of video and have a lot of discussion. What was a typical meeting like with everybody in there?
Well, it depends on what the meeting is. We have lots of meetings. We have football meetings. We have recruiting meetings. We have NIL meetings. We have academic meetings. We do a lot of meetings, but we have a system, and it usually consists of somebody presenting some information. Might be about third down, red area, 2-minute, 2-point offense, same thing. Situational football. Somebody's the master of it, presents it, and then the coordinator takes the pieces he likes, puts them together, and puts a complete package together.
If you're having a recruiting meeting, as you mentioned, do the individual coaches present players for consideration, or how does that work?
Well, we have a staff together that puts together people for the position coaches to watch, see who they like. They rate them. They put them in different spots and above the line, below the line. What do we need? What are we losing? How many can we take? What do we know about them character-wise? And then the coaches present and kind of pull those guys together. And we defer to the coaches, but we have cross-checkers, and we don't want a coach to be the only decision maker.
Another question from hashtag Ask Coach Smart Savannah in Alpharetta, Georgia. Was there any particular personal performance that surprised you last week against Tennessee Tech?
Personal performance? Probably not. I don't think anybody played enough to have that. I mean, literally, when I looked at the sheet, there was 3 or 4 guys over 30 snaps. I mean, Carson, I think, had the most at 40. A couple linemen had 34. And then after that, no defensive player had over 27 or 28. So it's just hard to put together. Ty Ingram Dawkins would be one. He had a couple tackles for a loss. Probably had his best game since being here. He's a guy I would single out. Christian Miller had a really good game. Obviously, Carson's 5 touchdowns. But we're just not about those individual accolades. It's just not who we are. We want to be an invisible individual and a very present team.
You had a lot of, the younger guys able to get some snaps, and how important is that, regardless of the game or the opponent, just to be in that situation, playing at home in that atmosphere? That's a big deal?
Yeah, it's great for morale. It's all about morale, and my hard work paid off. I got to play, so now I go back to the drawing board and I get better, so that the next time I go to play, I play better.
Anybody else got one more question? We got about 30 seconds. Want to holler one out? No, nothing? Okay, our friends from Napa have been here all night long.
They're finally quiet. They're ready to go back. They want to go back to creature comforts. They're trying to get back to creature comforts.
Well, Kirby, thanks very much tonight, and good luck this weekend against Kentucky.
Thank you, guys, and go Dogs.
All right,
we appreciate it.